to make this place my home,
Yep.
and this is where my daughter is from, and this is now home, and I will make the art that makes me feel more at home, and I will work toward making this more of a home because this is a decision I've made, and it's a lifelong goal.
That's beautiful. And so now, as a parent, how are you going to make sure that your daughter is also rooted in her culture?
Having chai is like having a heart to heart with someone without realizing you're having a heart to heart with them. And that's what I've been doing these last few months with Pakistani diaspora all over the world. I want to welcome you to season 1 of Shaam Ki Chai.
Assalamualaikum, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Shaam Ki Chai. I'm your host, Nitasha, and today I have with us Safwat Saleem, who is a visual artist, a graphic designer, and a filmmaker. Thank you so much for being on the show, Safwat. How are you doing?
Of course, I'm happy to be here. I'm doing well. I'm a bit cold, but but being in Arizona, I mean, I feel that I'm not used to the cold at all. Yeah,
Yeah, you're really
but
not.
I've always lived in hot places. My entire life, I've always lived in very hot places. So
Yes.
even if it gets a bit cold, I'm a wimp. I'm like, it's freezing.
I see the toque, and you're 10 degrees warmer than us in California. So I'll tell you that. And you have lived in hot places because you were born in Sialkot, you grew up in Abu Dhabi, and then you spent most of your adult life in the United States, correct? Uh,
Yeah, and even in the US, I spent my time mostly in Arizona, of all places. So I have not lived in any cold places.
you haven't lived in any cold places. So let's talk about the first or the second hot place that you grew up in, Abu Dhabi.
Uh,
It is definitely not known for treating Desi people well. So, like most of the Middle East. And I have my opinions about that, but maybe we'll
right.
get into that. But let's hear
Have you
about
lived there? Have you lived in the Middle East?
I have not lived in the Middle
Yeah.
East. I have not, but I've heard horror stories, especially from Desi people. And so, what was your experience like growing up in Abu Dhabi, and just how was it?
Now I feel I should have my top 10 list of horror stories ready.
Yes, please.
No, yeah. So but I will admit that it is not a place that's known for treating people from Pakistan, India, entire South Asia pretty well. So, but at the same time, I feel I had a very sheltered upbringing over there. So, over there, the communities, at least the way that I grew up, are such that people don't get to interact with the locals much. I always felt that the locals live in their own palaces, far
Ah,
away from where peasants like us live, and
yes,
so you would get to see them in their fancy cars every now and then.
waving to the
Uh,
crowd.
uh, uh, and stuff like that. But I want to say that my parents did a very good job at just like sheltering where we felt like safe and protected, and like we belong to a community. But as you grow up, as I grew up, as I became a teenager, or even after I left and I began to read and the history and news, and then you would make the connection like, oh, something was off. So as a child, I interpreted it a certain way, but as an adult, it changed my understanding of why I was being treated the way that I was being treated. Because as a child, I did not have some of the nuanced understanding which I do now.
Yeah, yeah, it probably didn't make sense to you. So what is your understanding now? Why is it this way? Because it's a Muslim country, and so you
Right.
would think it would be accepting of Muslims and people from different backgrounds, but it's not. And so, based off of everything that you've learned and read, where do you think that gap is?
I mean, if I knew the answer for why, I think I would solve all of the
The
global
world's
issues happening
problem.
right now, all the nationalism issues happening the world over. Why is the world turning so nationalist all of a sudden? Why is everybody beginning to lean right in all these countries? But I think the one of the reasons was like, a their local population over there is pretty small. I don't want to make up numbers, but if I was to make them up, like let's say 20% is local and 80% are people from other places,
Yes.
and people from Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka, and those countries were mostly like especially Pakistanis were mostly, I want to say, in blue collar jobs,
Got it.
like a lot of the community, and I feel that a lot of it is like a class issue as well, that we were treated as outsiders,
Right.
and all the laws at every level were made to ensure that you were aware that you are here like, temporarily. You
Yeah.
have no rights,
Yes.
and they can take everything away at any given time. And even though I felt that way, I want to say that I know many people who might be originally from Pakistan, right? But they feel that UAE was their home. And even now, if you ask them, where are you from? They're like, I'm from UAE, because that's
Wow.
where they grew up.
Okay.
And so, because they don't necessarily see Pakistan as their home, because they did not spend any time in Pakistan.
Mhm.
So I feel it's a mixed bag.
So you also mentioned your favorite Golgappa guy when we were talking.
Yes,
A couple
yes,
weeks ago.
yes. So
Tell me about
good.
these Golgappas. They sounded so good.
That has a special place in my heart, like Golgappe, just because of my experience as a child with Golgappe. Even now, like when I yearn for Pakistan, I'm like, that
Golgappa.
one guy's Golgappe is the one that I yearn for.
Yes.
And he was just like a Golgappe really well, like in the street where he would yell
Yeah.
the Golgappe, and he would always come around like, I don't know, 2 p.m., 3 p.m. when it was really hot in the
Yeah.
summers, and he has no refrigeration, there are flies, and questionable uh,
Who needs sanity?
cleanliness of the entire
Yeah.
operation. But man, could he makes golgappe, like, and I would have to, like, I feel I'd have to negotiate with Ammi, like, no, no, no. I think we should do pure darjan today. No, no, no. Can we do more? Can we do 2 plates? Like, how many can we do? And it was always a negotiation. And Ammi was like, नहीं नहीं मेरे पास सिर्फ तीन मेरे पास सिर्फ 30 रुपए हैं, or like whatever. And I would be
Okay.
like, no,
Yeah.
no, I'll give you back later. No, no, we must have the golgappe.
You must.
And I feel that in the US, like, yeah, there are like many desi restaurants, but wherever I've had golgappe, it's not been the same as that guy in our neighborhood in Salcott who would come
Oh.
around every summer. It's not even close.
Growing up in Abu Dhabi, spending a lot of time in Pakistan, and then you moved to Mississippi for undergrad, correct?
Yes, that's correct. So I did my undergraduate in Mississippi. I spent like 4 years there, and after spending 4 years in Mississippi, I moved to Phoenix after that, Phoenix, Arizona.
Yes, and you did the blasphemous Desi immigrant thing, and you went from computer science, an undergrad in
Right.
computer science, to a master's degree in art.
I was the model child. I was like, oh look, मेरा बेटा computer engineer बनेगा. Look, अच्छा, इसके बहुत रिश्ते आएंगे. And from that, I changed like arts. Like, no, I'm done with computer science because I don't like it very much.
Amazing.
But I graduated. And my compromise was that I will finish the degree,
Mm,
and the compromise was also that I will get grades that my parents are happy with. Like,
right.
are you happy? So I did that good desi part. All right, now I would like to pursue the arts. Yeah.
You have a lot of guts, and so I wanted to be a lawyer. And my parents were like, "Nahi, doctor, not just doctor, brain surgeon."
But lawyer is good, right? Lawyer is like a very
Science and technology.
financially
Nice,
stable and all
nice.
that.
They were
Nahi,
like,
nahi.
nice. It has to be in science and technology, not just
Oh my
any
gosh.
science, brain surgeon. And so we eventually negotiated.
And why stop at like
Nope,
a low end of
nahi, nahi, where's
medicine?
the
You've
top?
got to
Where's
be
the
the
top?
high
And
end.
a lot of
Yes, yes,
people all say that
neuroscience.
we settled for computer science, and that's where I landed. But how did your family take that transition, and how did your parents react to that?
So I feel that I'm lucky in many regards that my parents, at least outwardly, are not very I want to say disapproving. They have their own ways of having those conversations. So at least my interactions were not like the movies. There wasn't like thunder and the thali didn't drop, and all of a sudden, yeah, all that stuff did not happen. But I do think that if I was a girl, I think
Oh
it
yeah,
would be more difficult.
yeah,
So I have that desi privilege going for me.
yeah.
And so what I remember this conversation where I had finished my undergrad and I was talking to my dad, Abujan, and I was saying, "Kya cha?" So, like, I finished computer science, and the graphic design is something that I really like, and I want to do my master's in graphic design, and he listened, like, I want to say patiently and
Yeah.
calmly, and then he goes, "I think it's not too late to get into medical school." That's what he said. And I remember just sitting there like, what? Like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I didn't even go to pre-med.
Yeah.
So it is
Completely
definitely too
different
late to
trajectory
go to
here.
medical school.
Yeah.
So I told him, yeah, no, it's definitely too late to go to medical school. And then medical school, like, what? It will be 7 years
Yeah.
after that. And I tried to play that angle, like, hey, if you want me to get married at a decent age,
Ah, the
medical
shadi
school is
angle,
not
the
gonna
shadi
cut
angle.
it.
Yeah.
And so I used the happiness and the shadi angle, which,
Nice.
like, I mean, I'll use whatever tools that I have at my
Obviously.
disposal. I have no shame.
When we were chatting, you mentioned that it started off as just lighthearted jokes.
Right.
And as it evolved, it turned more into the immigrant experience and sort of discovering the sense of belonging. And so,
Yeah.
what caused this switch to happen, or did it happen more organically over time?
So, yes, I would say that it was a slow change, not like all of a sudden, but the change had to do with, like essentially me understanding my place like as an immigrant. So I would say that I'm a professional immigrant because I've been an
Oh,
immigrant all my
yes.
life. So I
Yes,
was
you have.
first in Abu Dhabi and now here. So in a sense, like, all right, so my parents were immigrants, right? But they choose to move to a place that does not let you call it home, right? So,
Right.
like, you can't be from UAE. So if they had, like, moved to, let's say, the US, and I was born in the US, I might
Mm,
have different feelings. I would feel like, yeah, I'm American, I'm born here, but I'm not born here, right? So I've always been an immigrant, and that's just an aspect of me that is, um the like, I suppose a big part of my identity is just who I am,
mm,
and as an immigrant, uh, you get treated a certain way, and you also have these, uh, I want to say, like, basically limitations of how you see yourself. So you
right.
always see yourself as kind of an outsider. So and especially at a young age in UAE, the way that we got treated, it uh, uh, got picked on just for
Sure.
being desi, right?
Yes.
And then in the US, I experienced 9/11 when I was in Mississippi.
Ah,
Mississippi is a really conservative place,
right.
and not that there's a good place to be in the US during 9/11, but Mississippi was definitely
Not the place
not
to
a
be.
good place to be at that time,
Right.
and that has shaped a lot of how, like, basically I see myself.
Go to Canada, and I will never forget this. This was like fourth grade or fifth grade, and I asked someone like, "What is your religion?" And they're like, "Well, what's a religion? Is that like a last name?" And I was like,
Wow.
"No, no, that's not." And it was so bizarre. This person didn't understand. And then I would tell people, "Oh, I'm from Pakistan," and they'd be like, "What? You mean India?" And I was like, "No, Pakistan." And they'd be like, "No, is that where Saddam Hussein is from?" And I'm like, "No, that's not it, right?" And so
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like this sense of like you don't really belong anywhere. And in today's world where everything is digital, we're all like sort of locked in, everyone's traveling. How do you get that sense of belonging? Where does anyone belong, really?
So I think that remains the ongoing challenge, right? So now at least I'm at this point where, like, I have a family of my own. I have a daughter. I'm married, and my parents are now here as well in Arizona. So there was
Okay.
a time when I did not see my parents for like 11 years.
Wow.
But my parents are in Arizona, and my brother and his family are in Arizona as well. So I feel that I have, like, my mini little
Family.
family all here with me, right?
Right.
So we are here now, and that sense of community, the belonging essentially comes from just being around people who make me feel like I belong,
Ah,
and
that's
uh, and there are good days, there are bad days, like,
of course.
um, all the political turmoil. I think that as the global politics continue to go more toward the right, I feel that immigrants just get picked on by default, and that's just
Of
how it is.
course,
But
the easy
as
thing.
long as your inner circle gives you the support that you need, you feel like you belong. And this is something that I've thought about like a lot, and I talk about this with my wife. Is that okay? So let's say I was in Germany, or
Yeah,
like I was in the UK, like I was someplace else, and I was an immigrant, and I had the same experiences. I would not be able to speak so vocally as I do in the US, because US and Canada are among the few countries that are founded on the idea of immigrants, that this is a home
yes,
for immigrants.
yes,
So
yes.
look, whenever in the US, if anybody makes the argument to me that go back to where you came from, the answer is F off. No, I belong here just as much as you do.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so,
You go back to where you came from.
yes, I have chosen to make this place my home,
Yeah.
and this is where my daughter is from, and this is now home. And I will make the art that makes me feel more at home, and I will work toward making this more of a home, because this is a decision I've made, and it's a lifelong goal.
That's beautiful. And so now, as a parent, how are you going to make sure that your daughter is also rooted in her culture while calling America home?
Right. Like I suppose a lot of Desi music is my answer.
Ah, yes, all the dramas, Hum TV 24/7.
No, so it's very interesting with the media, right? So with uh, especially with kids media, it's just so saturated with, like, you just can't compete with Disney and
No.
Frozen and like all that stuff. So even if I shelter her from all of that stuff. I'm like early on, I decided like, okay, I don't think you need to learn this much about Disney princesses or whatever. Like, I'll
Yeah.
teach you other things. And she goes to daycare. She has her friends who have the Disney princesses lunchboxes and all of that stuff. And she's like, and she comes home and she's like, I love Elsa. And I'm like, who is Elsa? And why do you love her? And
Yeah.
I feel the world has more influence on her than I do.
Right. Of
It's
course.
just how it is, and
That's how
it's
it is.
automatically. Uh, she's barely 3, and already her peers have more influence on her. She cares more about what her friends. She wants to show things to her friends, and so. But at the same time, we talk about Pakistan a lot. I try to. She's at that stage where she likes having conversations, and she asks me about Pakistan, like, tell me what it was like when you were a child. And so
Yeah.
we try to. I don't know if everything registers. Obviously, it does not. She's still too young.
Yeah.
But I try to tell her as much as I can, and I've been doing that with music a lot. Basically, sharing with her the music that I listened to when I was growing
Oh,
up,
that's beautiful. Yeah.
but even contemporary Pakistani music as well, which is so much good stuff is coming out again.
Oh,
And so we do that with music a lot, and she likes to sing. So if I can get her to like sing an Urdu song, I see that as a win.
oh, that's incredible. My parents, we were huge on music too at home, but one rule in the house was you can't speak in English. And so they
Oh
would
wow, that's a
taunt
good
you.
rule.
They're like, nope, no English, Urdu mein baat karo, warna hum jawab nahi denge. Um,
I think that's fantastic. So I speak to her only in Urdu. So I
acha,
speak to her only in Urdu, but my wife speaks English with her. And so, but then at school, at daycare, etc.,
yeah,
the world like speaks English.
yeah.
So it's just I feel she's getting Urdu from me, but not as much as she needs. But I plan to keep this up. Like, I don't respond to her in English. I'm like, I will continue to speak Urdu with you. So we'll see how far this goes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I would, they would not even reply to me if I didn't say it in Urdu. They'd be like, हमें समझ नहीं आ रहा, क्या बोल रही हो? फिर से बोलो.
Yeah,
Right? And
yeah,
it
I should start doing that.
yeah, you should try it. And it actually generally enhanced my language skills because then I went into French immersion and I picked up French fluently and that was very easy and I can pick up languages quite easily now. So it
Oh.
helped in the longer run, but that was their way to root me in the culture where they're just like, bas Urdu bolo. Hamare saath Urdu.
Yeah, and the language issue, I feel it's like a big one because it's part of our history. It's part of who we are, and it's worth preserving. I feel that from my parents' generation to me, we kind of lost Punjabi. Like, I understand Punjabi, but I don't speak it fluently.
Right.
So even now, my mom speaks Punjabi to me, but I respond back in English,
Ah,
in Urdu.
acha.
And so, and I feel that if we lose Punjabi with my generation, and if we lose Urdu with my daughter's generation, my family, then that's like two languages lost in a span of just two generations, and that's not something I am okay with happening, at least.
Let's go back to just art more generally a little bit and talk about what role do you think it plays in changing society, whether it's changing society here, whether it's changing society back in Pakistan. What is the role of art in society, in your opinion?
So I think art is the great storyteller,
Mm,
and that includes all kinds of arts. I feel like music, and movies,
movies, media,
and
everything.
visual arts,
Yes.
and poetry more and more. So many amazing poets coming out of Pakistan that at least I'm aware of. And so what it does is that it tells you a story, and when it's a compelling story, when it's a good story, it sticks with you. So even if it doesn't have even if it does not have an immediate effect, if it's
Mm,
not like uh, I don't see art as like immediately changing people's minds and all those things, but it leaves a seed of an idea, and when it's a really good idea, it just plants in your head, and it grows as you grow, and then as my views change, as I learn more, as I grow, I feel I'm a product of all of the art seeds that I have consumed, and my thoughts are based on all the wonderful stories via art that I've consumed. So I'm a product of all of that art, and my views are based on that. And I feel this is what art does.
mhm,
It's
mhm,
like
mhm.
over time, it makes people. Uh, uh, I feel have a better understanding of who they are and what the world is.
Yeah, yeah. I think we're all a product of media and art to some degree. Actually, I was doing some research. And do you remember that show ER back in the day?
Yes, yes.
And so specific ER episodes were actually social experiments. And I don't know if you know this. And so they
Oh,
would have
I didn't
episodes
know.
around somebody get their life being saved over an organ donation or a blood donation. And then they would actually track the number of people that signed up to donate blood and organ donors.
Oh
And
my
they would
gosh,
spikes.
I
They would
didn't know that.
actual spikes. Yeah, yeah. There's studies done on this. It was a lot of those episodes were social experiments of like what those narratives, how those narratives would change and shape and translate into society. And so there's a lot of direct correlation, especially in like mainstream media or TV or
Hmm.
movies, and how society thinks of things. And I think that's interesting.
That's amazing. I did not know that they were messing with our minds all this time.
Yeah, I mean, they're always messing
Mm,
with your minds. That's what it is. Okay, so before we close it off, and I ask everybody this, the show is called Shaam Ki Chai, and I would love to have an insight on what Shaam Ki Chai was like for you at home, and what did you guys
right.
drink, what did you eat, and what did you talk about?
So, like in our family, it was like pretty much like chai, har waqt ki chai. But
Ah,
it was not just
chai
like
on top.
Sham ki chai, like if it's early morning, the chai ka waqt. If it's dopahr ka khana, chai ka waqt. So it was at least my mom uh, drank a lot of chai. But I do have these memories, at least on the weekends when I was home from school. So our weekends were Thursday, Friday was the weekend, and
Nice.
in the UAE, and I have these memories in the afternoons. Like it just seems like such a pleasant time, and I don't know if I'm just being nostalgic of like Abu having a cup of tea as he has like a radio. Facing the window, listening to some commentary of a cricket
Beautiful.
game from far away on like BBC, and he's like messing with the antenna, like, oh, the signal's not right, and he's like trying to they're gonna follow some Pakistan West Indies game,
Sure.
and like Ami's having chai, and me and my brother like playing a game of Scrabble with our uncle,
Nice.
and everybody's having chai, and I just and it's possible this happened only once. I don't know, but in my mind, this is
It's
like,
so
oh, this was
imprinted
such
in
an
your
amazing
mind.
time, like
Yeah.
everybody in their zone doing their thing as they have their tea. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for your time. And thank you, everybody, for watching. We will be back with another episode and have a wonderful evening. Take care.
So happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.